Hello, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today as we explore the dynamic world of integrating Azure Cosmos DB with Azure ecosystem. So, during the session, we'll embark on a journey through the rich landscape of Azure services. We will discover how they seamlessly integrate with Azure Cosmos DB to create a powerful and scalable solution. I am Hamida Rebai, Microsoft MVP, Microsoft Certified Trainer, and Docker Captain. I'm working as Cloud Solution Architect. If you have any question after this session, you can join me by Twitter, LinkedIn, by email, or you can follow my blog to get more about Cosmos DB and Azure services. As organizations increasingly embrace cloud technology to drive innovation and accelerate digital transformation, the need for robust, flexible, and high-performance databases become paramount. And Azure Cosmos DB stands at the forefront of this evolution. It offers a globally distribution, multi-model database service designed to meet the demands of modern applications. And Cosmos DB is it's one piece of the puzzle. And the true power of Azure lies in its ecosystem of services. Each purpose built to address specific challenges and enhance the capabilities of your applications. Today, we'll not only explore the core features of Azure Cosmos DB, but also we'll delve into how it integrates seamlessly with other Azure services to unlock even greater value. So, well, we will start today by talking about introducing, let's say, the various components of Azure ecosystem, from compute, storage to AI and analytics. So we'll explore how these services complement Azure Cosmos DB in its role. Next, we will dive into real-world examples. We present some real-world examples of specific organizations in different areas. Next, we will then shift our focus to the technical aspect of integrations. Let's start by an overview of Azure ecosystem. So here we will talk about Azure Cosmos DB, next specific features and the highlight services such as Azure Functions, Azure Logic Apps, Azure Machine Learning, and we see the synergy with all these services with Azure Cosmos DB. So we need to just talk about specific components of Azure ecosystem to lay the foundation for our discussion. We need to understand different services in Azure. Let's start by the first one, that is compute services. If we set compute services here, we have Azure Virtual Machines, VM, so on-demand scalable computing resources that allow you to deploy and manage virtual machines in the cloud. We have also Azure Kubernetes Services, AKS. It's managed Kubernetes service for deploying, managing, and scaling containerized applications. We have also Azure Functions. It's serverless compute services that enables you to run even triggered code without provisioning or managing server. The second category of these components of Azure ecosystem, we have storage services. We have Azure Blob Storage, that is an object storage service for storing and serving large amount of unstructured data, for example, documents, images, and videos. Azure Cosmos DB fall inside this type of services, like storage services. So it's globally distributed multimodal database service designed for building highly responsive and scalable applications. We have SQL database, Azure SQL database. It's fully managed relational database service that provides high availability, security, and performance. This is other examples. We can find more examples for inside storage services. We try to focus what we need to talk about today. So this is why that you can find more than 100 services in Azure. So next one is networking services. We have Azure Virtual Network, for example, that is isolated and customizable network infrastructure for connecting Azure resources securely. Another example of networking services is Azure Traffic Manager, like it's DNS-based traffic load balancer that enables you to distribute incoming traffic across multiple Azure regions. We have analytic services and artificial intelligence services. For example, Azure Machine Learning, we'll talk about that, how we can integrate it with Cosmos DB. It's cloud-based platform for building, training, and deploying machine learning model at scale. We have Azure Cognitive Services. It's pre-built AI models and APIs for adding intelligent capabilities such as vision, speech, language, understanding to your applications. And we have also another category that is integration services. We will talk about one of these services that is Azure Lock Apps. We will see how we can use it with Cosmos DB. We can integrate it with Cosmos DB in specific use cases and scenarios. So it's workflow automation service that enables you to automate business processes and integrate disparate systems and services. Another integrated integration service that is Azure Event Grid is event routing service that simplifies event-driven architecture by allowing you to react to events from any source. Security identity services. We can mention here Microsoft Entra ID, that is cloud-based identity and access management service for securing and managing user identifiers and access to any resources inside Azure. Another symbol of security identity service, it's Azure Key Vaults enables you to store securely and manage cryptography, your keys, secrets, and certificates used by any cloud application and any services inside Azure. And we have the management and monitoring services. For example, Azure Monitor is a comprehensive monitoring solution that provides insight into the performance and health of your Azure resources and applications. Azure Policies, it's another service under that fall under management and monitoring services, that is policy based service for enforcing governance and compliance requirements across your Azure environment. So we need to understand in the beginning, before talking about Cosmos DB, Azure ecosystem and the different services that Azure can offer for you. We have more than 100 services inside Azure. So we mentioned that that is necessary for us to talk about Azure Cosmos DB and its integration. So to define Azure Cosmos DB is fundamentals component, and it's a foundational component within the Azure ecosystem. It provides a globally distributed multimodal database service that seamlessly integrates with other Azure services to enable the development of highly responsive and scalable applications. So we have, let's say, some features like global distribution, some characteristics like global distribution, because it's designed from the ground up to be globally distributed, allowing you to replicate your data across multiple Azure regions worldwide. It's really, it aligns perfectly with Azure's global presence, enabling you to deploy your application closer to your users for lower latency and improved performance. We have multi-model supports because Azure Cosmos DB supports multiple data models, including documents, key value graph, and column family data models. This flexibility makes it well suited for a wide range of application and use cases, from content management system to real-time analytic platforms. Another characteristics related to Azure Cosmos DB is that it offers scalability and performance, because it offers limitless scalability and elastic throughput, allowing you to handle massive volume of data and high transaction rates with ease. This aligns with Azure's focus on scalability and performance, ensuring that your application can grow and adapt to changing demand without compromising on performance. And we have a developer productivity because it's designed to enhance developer productivity by providing a fully management service with comprehensive SDK and tools for popular programming languages and platform. You can use any languages. So this integration with Azure's developer tools and services streamlines the development process. It enables developers to focus on building innovative applications rather than managing the infrastructure. And we have a unified management and monitoring integrated inside the Azure Cosmos DB with Azure's management and monitoring tools. We can use Azure Monitor, for example. It allows you to monitor the performance, health, and the use of your databases from the Azure portal. You can use also APIs. This unified management experience simplifies operations and enables proactive monitoring and troubleshooting. So this is about the ecosystem of Azure Cosmos DB. Let's uh, let's see how we can integrate Azure Cosmos DB within Azure ecosystem that we already defined. Azure Cosmos DB seamlessly integrate with a variety of Azure service. It enabling you to leverage complementary capabilities and build end-to-end solution. So we have three services that we will cover today in some real world and use cases. The first one is Azure Functions. It's really simple to integrate Cosmos DB with Azure Functions because you can use Azure Functions to trigger serverless logic in response to changes in your Azure Cosmos DB data. If you want to insert any specific data, update it or delete documents in this case, you can just use Azure Functions. You combine it. We will see how we can combine that with Azure Cosmos DB. We have also Azure Logic Apps. It allows you to orchestrate workflows and automate business processes that involve interactions with Azure Cosmos DB. For example, data synchronization or document processing. It's another use for the integration of Cosmos DB with Azure Logic Apps and with machine learning by integrating that Azure Cosmos DB with Azure Machine Learning. You can train machine learning models using your data stored in Azure Cosmos DB and deploy those models to make real-time prediction or recommendations. Let's see some examples of an integration. This is an example of integrating Cosmos DB with Azure Functions. So Azure Functions can be used to create, we say, some serverless application that can trigger Cosmos DB operations. We can be triggered by events in an Azure Cosmos DB, like document insertion, updates, or deletion, or we can perform serverless computation or data processing based on the events received from Azure Cosmos DB. And we have this an example. This is an example of it's C# languages create, but you can use any languages to create your specific function in Azure Functions. This example show us that can be triggered by a HTTP request and then use the Cosmos DB SDK to perform create, read, update, delete operations on a Cosmos DB database. So here we see how we can create Azure function, then insert a new document into Cosmos DB. It's a simple example. Let's take a look to another example of integration. This time it will be related to Azure Logic Apps. It's a really simple one, but you are able to create a complex scenario using Azure Logic Apps to create your workflows. We said that we are able to create workflows inside Azure Logic Apps that involve Cosmos DB operations. So can orchestrate workflows and automate business processes. And we can utilize connectors to interact with Azure Cosmos DB, triggering actions based on data changes or any other events. This is an example of a logic app that can be triggered by an HTTP request and then use the Cosmos DB connectors to perform CRUD operation on a Cosmos DB database. So we start with our function. Now we can try to trigger from this function to logic app, or from logic app we will make our task. We will trigger our task. We create an action inside our workflow to say to you, now we need to create a new document in this case. So let's see how we can do that using logic app. So we create a new logic app and add HTTP request trigger in this case. Next, we click on trigger. Next, we will click on create a new here. We will add a new action. So we add Cosmos DB action and we will configure it to connect to your Cosmos DB database. You need to have already created your Cosmos DB and your database already added in your container inside the Cosmos DB. So, and after we select, for example, here create or update or create an item. It's in French, sorry for that. But we will create here or update specific documents. So if the document exists already, it will be created or it will be updated. Next, we can add our insert our item action. We need to add different element your let's say the specific action, and to configure it to answer the new document into Cosmos DB container. So here we have different settings. You can update your different settings and you have different parameters. Next, we need to save and test your logic app. And you can see how you can update your document according or add your document according to the information added in the description inside the Cosmos DB action. So we have other case studies of integrated solution. We will see the common use cases for Azure Cosmos DB and the real world. We try to talk about some specific real world examples here. So let's explore common use case for Azure Cosmos DB across different industry and scenario. The first one is IoT and telemetry, and here we have IoT application devices generate vast amount of data, often in real time, which needs to be ingested, processed, and analyzed efficiently. And Azure Cosmos DB is well suited for storing telemetry data from IoT devices due to its globally distributed nature, low latencies, reads and writes, and horizontal scalability. Another use case that is retail marketing, where retailers and marketers rely on data to understand customer behavior, personalize experience, and optimize operations. Azure Cosmos DB can serve as a central repository for customer integrations, purchase history, and inventory data, enabling retailers to deliver and targeted promotion, optimize pricing strategies, and streamline supply chain operation. Another one is online storefront, another use case that is e-commerce platform, for example, that requires a highly responsive and scalable database to handle the influx of concurrent user interactions, product catalog updates, and order processing. And Azure Cosmos DB provides the flexibility and scalability needed to support the dynamic nature of online storefront, ensuring high availability and low latency access to data. And sure, for we have web or mobile applications, it requires a fast and reliable data to deliver engaging user experience. Cosmos DB serves as a backend database for web and mobile applications, providing low latency data access, offline synchronization, and automatic scaling to handle fluctuating user demands. Let's take a look about some real-world Cosmos DB integration services. Let's start by the first one, that is Jet.com, that is an online retailer acquired by Walmart, leveraged Azure Cosmos DB alongside other Azure services to build an scalable, responsive e-commerce platform. And they integrated Azure Function with Azure Cosmos DB to trigger serverless logic for handling inventory updates, pricing changes, and order processing. And they use Azure machine learning to analyze customer behavior and preferences stored in Azure Cosmos DB, enabling personalized product recommendation and targeted marketing campaign. Another example is Toyota Connected. Its subdirectory of Toyota Motor Corporation use Cosmos DB in conjunction with Azure Functions and Logic App to power their connected car platform. So Azure functions were used to process telemetry data from vehicle and trigger real-time alerts for maintenance issues or safety concern, and Azure Logic App orchestrated workflows for vehicle diagnostics and maintenance scheduling based on data stored in Azure Cosmos DB, ensuring proactive maintenance and improved customer experience. We have more examples like Thales Alinea Spaces that also use Azure Cosmos DB that is served as a repository for specific telemetry data, storing vast amount of sensor data collected from satellites, and Azure machine learning models were training using historical telemetry that already stored in Azure Cosmos DB. So we have here the predictive maintenance and anomaly detection to optimize satellite performance and extend operational lifespan. ASOS is a global fashion retail leveraged Azure Cosmos DB to store the data also, and it uses Azure function to process and analyze customer browsing behavior, shopping cart interactions stored in Azure Cosmos DB, enabling real-time personalized recommendation and promotion. And Azure Logic App facilitates a seamless integration between Azure Cosmos DB and other backend systems. And we have more and more examples like Shipdoll digital ordering platform. Also, I will share the link in the end with all this success story that is using already Cosmos DB. We see just a real example of a smart city project in Freiburg. We see that it's using already Cosmos DB to start different data sources collected from environment sensor, from weather data, from traffic camera, from public infrastructure, and it uses Azure functions as backbone to the event-driven architected processing data streams from various sources and triggered actions based on predefined rules and three holes. So we have a serverless logic that already implemented to analyze incoming data in real time in this case. And the goal is related to traffic management. Using the camera, we are able to detect an incident, and Azure function trigger automated response such as adjusting traffic signal timing. So different benefits behind like real-time decision making, in this case, efficient data flow, scalability, flexibility, and improved urban mobility because with timely detection and response to traffic incident to smart city project contributed to enhanced urban mobility, reducing congestion, improving safety, and optimizing transportation efficiency. Now we have another example that's related to marketing logistic. That's logistic company in Durban, South Africa. We can see in the flow how we can use Azure Logic apps with Azure Cosmos DB. It's a leading logistic company, and we and here Azure Cosmos DB is acted as a central database for storing order data, inventory information, and customer profiles. And our Azure Logic app orchestrate the flows that we already see here, the different flows, automated business processes across logistic companies. So here we have different key benefits like cost saving because we are automating everything in all the workflow, and improved efficiency, enhance customer satisfaction because we have real-time order status updates and accurate inventory availability information, improved customer satisfaction and loyalty, and leading the high retention rules, and scalability, reliability that is already related to the use of Azure Cosmos DB. We have some technical integration strategy like data flow, event-driven architected, and intelligent artificial and analytics because we are able to integrate Cosmos DB with other services inside Azure to manage to extract data to feed to capture real time data changes. We use event driven architecture. And here we talk about Azure functions, event driven grids, logic app, the combination of integration services and machine use or machine learning is under artificial intelligence. And we have also the analytics because we are able to get different analytics to help us in our task here. And the best practices for Azure integration started by a security measures. So we recommend to implement robust authentication mechanisms like integrating Azure Control ID. We need to ensure that encryption and trust and in transit to protect sensitive data stored in Azure Cosmos DB. Don't forget to use also role-based access control to assign different permission and restrict access to Azure Cosmos DB based on user roles. We have scalability consideration like design. Don't think about don't think about designing your integrated solution with scalability in mind, and use the partitional strategy and provision through put the capacity dynamically to accommodate increased data volumes and ensure optimal optimization. And we have cost efficiency strategy, performance optimization, and reliability. It comes with the use of Azure integration with Cosmos DB. By adding all these best practices, you are able to can effectively integrate Azure Cosmos DB with the Azure ecosystem while prioritizing security, scalability, cost efficiency, performance, and optimization and reliability. And thank you for joining us today on our session. If you have any question, you can reach me by Twitter, by LinkedIn. You can use the chat. I'm here to answer all to your questions. Thank you again.